I want you to close your eyes for a second. We are going on a trip.
Okay.
We're traveling back in time, about 2,500 years, to the island of Sicily. And we are not just going to the beach. We are hiking up the side of Mount Etna.
Which is an active volcano, mind you. This is not a leisurely stroll.
Definitely not. The air is thick with sulfur. It smells like rotten eggs and burning earth. The ground is actually vibrating under your feet because this mountain is alive.
And it's hot.
It is so hot, unbearably hot. So we get to the very edge of the caldera, the precipice, looking down into the boiling lava below, and standing right there on the edge of oblivion is a man.
And he is not dressed for hiking.
No, not at all. He's wearing these purple robes, which was the most expensive dye in the ancient world.
Yeah.
He has a golden wreath on his head like a king or a god. And on his feet, he's wearing these heavy, very distinct bronze sandals. He looks at his followers, he raises his arms, declares that he is no longer mortal but has become an immortal god, and he jumps.
The ultimate dramatic exit. I mean, you can't top that.
He hurls himself into the volcano, and the legend says, he wanted to disappear completely, so that when people couldn't find his body, they would just assume he descended to Olympus.
He wanted to fake his own apotheosis, his own becoming a god moment.
Exactly. But the volcano had the last laugh.
It did.
It did. A little while later, the volcano sort of burps.
Wow.
And it spits out exactly one bronze sandal.
Wow.
It lands at the feet of his followers. It's the ultimate debunking.
It is such a fantastic story. It's almost certainly a myth, but it tells us everything we need to know about the subject of today's deep dive.
Right.
We're talking about Empedocles of Acragas. And this story, it just sets the stage so perfectly because it captures the two sides of his reputation.
Okay, what are the two sides?
Well, on one hand, you've got the mad philosopher, right? The guy with the god complex who thinks he can cheat death. But on the other hand, you have a man who was so influential, so larger than life, that people told these stories about him for centuries.
And that is our mission today. We want to look past the bronze sandal. We want to understand how this one man who lived in the 5th century BC managed to bridge this gap between being like a mystical shaman who claimed to control the weather and a hard-nosed scientist who basically invented the periodic table, proposed a form of natural selection, and proved air was a physical substance.
It's a massive resume, and that tension you just mentioned between the shaman and the scientist, that is the key. Today, we put those things in different boxes, You have your physics professors over here and your gurus or mystics over there. Empedocles didn't see a difference.
He saw it as all one thing.
He is the bridge. He's that moment in history where magic starts to turn into mechanics.
So let's unpack this life, because even without the volcano jump, it is pretty wild. He was born around 494 BC in Acragas.
Right. And before we get into the man, we have to talk about the place. Acragas.
In Sicily.
In Sicily. And if you're imagining like a dusty little village with a few goats, you have to get that out of your head. Sicily in the 5th century BC was the new world of the Greek Empire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was booming. It was the frontier.
So it's like New York or Dubai or something.
Exactly. It was incredibly wealthy, culturally vibrant, and chaotic. Acragas was famous for luxury. There's a great quote that says, "The people of Acragas built their houses as if they were going to live forever and dined as if they were going to die tomorrow."
I love that. So Empedocles is growing up in this environment of like excess and high stakes.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a nobody, right? His family.
Oh, far from it. He came from serious old money. His grandfather, who was also named Empedocles, won a horse race at the Olympia.
Okay. I feel like in modern times, winning a horse race is cool, but it's not that big of a deal.
In the ancient Greek world, winning at Olympia was everything. It was like winning the Super Bowl, an Oscar, and the presidency all in one afternoon. It gave your family immense social capital. So our Empedocles, he grows up in the lap of luxury. He flourished around 444 BC, give or take.
But he didn't just sit around counting his grandfather's trophy money. He became a celebrity in his own right. I mean, Aristotle, the heavy hitter of philosophy, called Empedocles the father of rhetoric.
Which is a huge, huge compliment. It means he wasn't just smart. He was persuasive. He knew how to move a crowd.
And he needed that skill.
He did, because he was traveling from town to town, essentially performing his philosophy.
Performing. What do you mean by that?
I mean, he wasn't giving dry lectures in a classroom. He was a poet. He's actually the last major Greek philosopher to write his ideas in verse.
In poetry.
Epic hexameter, the same style as Homer. He wanted his science to sing. And so he would show up in these towns, probably with a whole retinue of servants dressed in his purple and gold, claiming to be a healer and a prophet.
It sounds a bit like a traveling revival show.
There's definitely that vibe. I mean, he claimed he could cure illnesses, control the winds.
And even bring the dead back to life.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's a pretty bold claim.
That's a bold claim. I can teach you physics, and also I can resurrect your grandma.
It shows the scope of his ambition, though. He did not think small. And this larger-than-life persona is probably why there are so many weird stories about his death.
Right.
We started with the volcano, which is the most famous one, recorded by the biographer Diogenes Laertius. But that's not the only theory, is it?
No, and the alternatives are just as entertaining. There's the removed from Earth theory.
Okay.
Heraclides Ponticus wrote that Empedocles threw a feast, and during the night, he was just plucked, taken.
The alien abduction theory of antiquity.
Basically, he just ascended into the sky. Then you have the boring version. Aristotle thought he just died of old age at 60.
Right, the sensible explanation.
Yeah, some others said he lived to be 109. But my favorite, by far, has to be the satire by Lucian.
Oh, Lucian is great. He's the ancient equivalent of a stand-up comic, just roasting everyone.
And Lucian suggested that when the volcano erupted, it didn't kill Empedocles.
What did it do then?
The blast launched him into the stratosphere, he landed on the moon, and he survived there, living on dew.
The first astronaut. It's hilarious, but it also shows you that even the comedians of the time recognized Empedocles as someone who just didn't belong on Earth. He was other.
It's so interesting that his death often overshadows his life. People know the sandal story, but they don't know the mind behind it. So I want to pivot now to what he actually thought. Because beneath the gold wreath and the poetry, this guy was a rigorous thinker. Let's talk about the four roots.
This is the big one, his biggest innovation. This is the cornerstone of Western science for 2,000 years.
Right. We all learn this in school, or we see it in movies like The Fifth Element. Fire, air, earth, water. Empedocles is the originator of that list.
He is. Before him, philosophers were usually what we call monists.
Monists, meaning one.
Meaning they thought the world was made of one thing. Thales thought everything was made of water. Heraclitus thought everything was fire. Anaximenes thought it was air.
It feels a bit like they were just guessing, like, I like water, so everything is water.
It was a bit more logical than that, but yeah, they were trying to simplify the incredible complexity of the world down to a single substance. Empedocles looked around and said, it's too complicated for one thing. It has to be a mixture.
And he called them roots, right? He didn't use the word elements.
Correct. The word element, which is stoichein in Greek, that was likely coined by Plato a bit later, Empedocles called them rhizomata, or roots.
Roots. That implies something living, something that things grow from.
Exactly. It's a much more organic metaphor. And true to his style, he didn't just give them scientific names, he used a code. He associated them with gods.
So he's mixing theology and chemistry.
Right from the start. He linked Zeus, the king of gods, with fire, or maybe the aether, the bright, shining stuff. He linked Hera, the life-bringer, with earth or air. The sources differ. Aidoneus, which is another name for Hades, was earth.
Okay. And water.
And water was Nestus.
Nestus. I don't know that guy.
It's a local Sicilian cult name for Persephone or a similar water deity. Empedocles wrote this beautiful line about her. Nestus, who moistens mortal springs with tears.
That is lovely. So water is literally the tears of a god.
It's poetry, but the concept behind it is hard science. Empedocles argued that these four roots are eternal, indestructible, and unchangeable.
Wait, unchangeable? But wood burns and becomes ash.
Yeah.
Water evaporates. Things change all the time.
And this brings us to the biggest intellectual hurdle that Empedocles had to clear. We have to talk about a guy named Parmenides.
Parmenides. I've heard the name, but remind me what his deal was.
Parmenides was the giant of philosophy right before Empedocles, and he had trapped everyone in a logical nightmare.
Okay.
He argued that nothing comes from nothing.
That sounds reasonable. You can't pull a rabbit out of a hat if the rabbit isn't already in the hat.
Right. But Parmenides took it to its logical extreme. He said, if nothing comes from nothing, then nothing new can ever exist. Because if it didn't exist before and it exists now, it must have come from nothing, which you just said is impossible. Uh-oh.
Therefore, change is an illusion. Movement is an illusion. The entire universe is one solid, frozen, unchanging block of being.
That's obviously wrong. I'm moving my hand right now. I can see things changing outside the window.
Your senses tell you things change. But Parmenides said your senses are lying to you. Logic tells you change is impossible. It was a crisis. Philosophy was stuck. How do you explain the real world without breaking the fundamental rules of logic?
And Empedocles found the loophole.
He found the loophole. He said, okay, Parmenides, you were right. Nothing is ever created or destroyed. The roots, fire, air, earth, water are eternal. They never change.
But UT.
But they can end.
So the ingredients are eternal, but the recipe changes.
Precisely. This is the birth of the concept of the mixture. Think of a painter. He has 4 colors on his palette. Say, red, white, black, and yellow. Those colors are constant. Red is always red.
Right.
But the painter can mix them to create a tree, a face, a river. The picture changes. If he wipes the canvas, the painting is gone, but the paint itself still exists. That makes so much sense. So when a tree dies, the earth and water and fire inside it don't actually die. They just come apart and go somewhere else.
Exactly. Reality is a remix. Everything we see, this microphone, your body, that volcano, is just a temporary arrangement of the 4 roots.
That sounds incredibly modern. It's basically the law of conservation of matter. Matter is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed.
It is the grandfather of that law. He established the idea that the universe is a closed system.
Okay, so we have the building blocks, the Legos, so to speak.
Yeah.
But Legos don't just build themselves. If I dump a box of bricks on the floor, they don't magically turn into a castle. They just sit there. What makes them move?
This is his second stroke of genius. He realized that matter needs energy to move it, so he introduced 2 opposing forces. Love in Greek, Philotes and Strife, or Nikos.
Love and strife. Again, these sound like emotions, not physical forces.
In his world, they are both. He projected his human experience onto the cosmos. Love is the force of attraction. It's what pulls unlike things together. It mixes water with earth to make mud. It binds people together in friendship.
And strife is the opposite.
Strife is the separator. It pushes things apart. It segregates. It separates the oil from the vinegar in salad dressing. It's a repulsive force.
So the entire universe is just a battleground between these 2 forces.
Yes. And it's not a static battle. It's a cycle. Empedocles mapped out a whole cosmic history that goes in a loop. It has 4 distinct stages.
Okay, let's walk through the stages. I want to visualize this.
Okay. Stage 1 is the sphere. Imagine a time where love is completely 100% dominant. Strife has been pushed all the way outside the universe. So every particle of earth, air, fire, and water is perfectly mixed together.
Like a smoothie.
A perfect seamless smoothie. There are no lumps, no distinctions, no sun, no moon, no trees, no people. Just a perfect featureless sphere of being.
It sounds peaceful, but also kind of terrifying. There's no me in the sphere.
Exactly. It's divine, it's perfect, but it's static. Nothing happens. Then comes stage 2, the intrusion of strife. Strife starts to leak back in from the edges.
The corruption begins.
Or the creation begins, depending on how you look at it. Strife starts to cut into the sphere. It begins to separate the elements. The smoothie starts to curdle. Vortices form. This is likely the Big Bang moment of his cosmology. Things start spinning and separating out.
And this leads to stage 3.
Stage 3 is the world of phenomena. This is where Empedocles believed we are living right now. We are halfway between total unity and total separation.
We are in the war zone.
Yes, love is trying to keep things together. That's why your body doesn't just fall apart into a pile of dust and water. But strife is trying to pull them apart. That's why we have death and decay. The tension between the 2 creates the complexity of life.
And then finally, stage 4.
Stage 4 is total separation. This is when strife wins for a time. Love is gone. Imagine the universe organized into 4 massive separate layers. A ball of pure earth in the middle, surrounded by a shell of pure water, then a shell of air, then a shell of fire.
So no mixing at all. No life.
Nothing, just dead layers.
And then, it doesn't just end there, does it?
No, because then love begins to creep back in, mixing them all up again, and we start heading back toward the sphere.
It's a pendulum. It just swings back and forth forever.
A cosmic heartbeat. Expanding and contracting, uniting and separating forever and ever.
It's amazing how he takes this physical theory and then applies it to biology.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading the notes on his theory of evolution, I honestly thought I was misreading it. It sounds like a horror movie.
It really, really does. This is the monsters section of his philosophy.
Right. So Empedocles is trying to explain where animals come from. But he doesn't say a god made a horse. And he doesn't say a fish crawled onto land. What does he say?
He describes the early stages of the world when love was just starting to mix things up again from that state of separation. He calls it the Lego phase, though obviously he didn't use that word.
Right.
He says that before whole animals existed, individual body parts were just wandering around.
Wandering around.
Yes. He writes about heads without necks, arms without shoulders, and eyes wandering alone bereft of foreheads.
I'm sorry, I'm picturing a giant eyeball just rolling across the landscape. That is absolute nightmare fuel.
It is Hieronymus Bosch meets ancient Greece. It's total chaos.
So what happens to these wandering limbs?
Well, they start bumping into each other, and because love is the force of attraction, they stick together randomly. This is what he calls the hybrid phase.
Random assembly. So you might get an arm attached to an ear.
Or much, much worse. Empedocles describes creatures with double faces, offspring of oxen with human faces, humans with ox heads, and creatures of double sex.
Man-faced oxen. It sounds like the Minotaur, but everywhere. Just these groaning, mismatched monstrosities stumbling around.
Exactly. But here is the scientific brilliance hidden inside the monster movie. He asks the question, why don't we see man-faced oxen walking around today?
Because they're terrifying.
Because they died. Empedocles argues that most of these random combinations were not adapted to survive. The man-faced ox maybe couldn't chew glass properly. The head walking on arms couldn't reproduce. So they perished. They were filtered out by nature.
Wait a minute. That's natural selection.
It is the core mechanism of natural selection. 2,000 years before Darwin, Darwin said that nature produces variations and the environment selects the ones that work. Empedocles is saying the exact same thing.
Wow.
He believed nature produced these random monsters, and only the ones that happened to fit together correctly, the ones where the teeth matched the stomach and the legs could actually run, only those survived to have babies.
That is absolutely incredible. He missed the slow change over millions of years part, but he nailed the survival of the fittest part.
He did. He viewed the order we see in nature not as a perfect design by a god, but as the survivor of a massacre. The beautiful horses and lions we see today were just the lucky few who weren't monsters.
That is a dark but brilliant way to look at the world.
It forces us to rethink the history of science. We think of evolution as a 19th century idea, but here it is, in 450 BC, written in poetry.
So we've got physics, we've got evolution. But Empedocles wasn't just observing the outside world. He was deeply, deeply concerned with the inside world, the soul.
This is where the shaman comes back in a big way. Empedocles was a firm believer in metempsychosis,
Which is reincarnation.
transmigration of the soul, yeah. He believed that the soul is an immortal thing that travels through different shapes over time. It can be a human, an animal, or even a plant.
Even a plant.
Yes. Empedocles actually claims to remember his past lives. There's a very famous fragment where he says, "For I have already been a boy and a girl, a bush and a bird and a mute sea fish."
He remembers being a bush. Wonder what that felt like. Just photosynthesis and vibes.
Probably very peaceful until a goat comes along. But for Empedocles, this isn't just a fun past life story. Reincarnation was a punishment.
A punishment? How so?
He believed that we, or at least some of us, are what he called fallen daemons.
Daemons. Like demons.
In Greek, a daemon isn't necessarily evil. It's more like a divine spirit, a minor god. Empedocles believed we used to live in that perfect sphere of love. We were divine and we were blissfully happy. But then we committed a crime.
What crime did we commit?
The text suggests bloodshed, or maybe perjury, breaking a sacred oath. We trusted in strife. We engaged in violence. And as punishment, we were cast out of the sphere and forced to wander this chaotic earth.
So we were grounded.
For a very long time. The sentence is 30,000 seasons, which probably means cycles.
Wow. 30,000 seasons. That is a long time to think about what you did.
And you have to spend those seasons cycling through mortal bodies. You're tossed from the ocean as a fish, to the air as a bird, to the land as a beast. The elements themselves hate you. He writes, "The force of the air pursues them into the sea. The sea spits them onto the threshold of the earth."
Nobody wants the sinner.
Nobody wants you. You're in exile.
This explains the vegetarianism, doesn't it?
It connects perfectly. Empedocles was a militant vegetarian. But it wasn't for health reasons or animal welfare as we think of it. It was a cosmic necessity.
Because if souls reincarnate into animals.
Exactly. If you kill a cow and eat a steak, you might be killing and eating your late grandfather. Or a fallen god who is serving his time.
It's essentially cannibalism.
Spiritual cannibalism. He writes this horrifying passage about a father lifting up his own son, who has changed form into an animal, and slaughtering him while saying a prayer. He calls it the ultimate horror.
It really raises the stakes of dinner.
It does. But notice the consistency, right? In the sphere of love, everything is united. There is no killing. In the world of strife, we kill and eat each other. So by being vegetarian, Empedocles is trying to reject strife. He is trying to live according to the law of love.
He's trying to act like he's already back in the sphere.
Exactly. It's an act of rebellion against the chaos of the world.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
in a way. He sees every living thing as a brother or sister in exile.
It's a radical empathy that flows directly from his physics.
Okay, I want to switch gears now. We've been very high-concept cosmic cycles, reincarnated bushes,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about a specific kitchen utensil,
The clepsydra.
the water thief. When I read about this, I had trouble visualizing it. Can you walk us through what this thing actually is?
Sure. Picture a sphere made of bronze, maybe the size of a grapefruit or a large orange.
Okay, holding the bronze grapefruit in my mind.
On the bottom of the sphere, there are lots of tiny holes, like a sieve or a colander. On the top, there is a long, narrow neck, like a bottleneck, with a single open hole at the very tip.
Got it. Sieve on the bottom, one hole on top.
Now, imagine you're Empedocles. You're playing with this thing in a basin of water. You dunk the sphere underwater. What happens?
Water rushes in through the sieve at the bottom, right?
Naturally. But what happens if you put your thumb over the top hole before you dunk it?
If I cover the top hole and push it down,
Hmm.
the water can't get in, or very little gets in. It stays mostly empty.
Why?
Well, because the air is trapped inside. It's pushing back.
The air is inside. Stop and think about that statement for a second. To us, that's obvious. But in 450 BC, most people, most philosophers, thought air was nothing. It was void, empty space.
Right. If a cup has no water in it, we say it's empty.
But Empedocles sees the water trying to get in, and something invisible is pushing it back. The nothing is fighting the something.
And winning.
And winning, exactly.
Yeah.
The air effectively blocks the water. Then, if he lifts his thumb off the top hole while it's still underwater, what happens?
The air rushes out, and the water rushes in.
You can feel the air against your finger. It's a physical thing.
It's such a simple experiment. A child could do it.
And that's the brilliance. He used a common household tool, basically a ladle or a wine thief, to prove a massive point in physics. Air is a corporeal substance. It's a body. It takes up space. It exerts pressure.
He proved the invisible world is physical.
He eliminated the void from physics, at least for a while. He showed that even when things look empty, they were full of matter. And he even applied this to the human body. He thought breathing worked the same way, blood and air moving in and out of pores, driven by pressure, just like the clepsydra.
It really shows that he wasn't just a mystic having visions in a cave. He was an observer. He's running experiments.
He was. And this brings us to another one of his scientific hits, light.
Oh, right. The speed of light.
Well, the idea of the speed of light. Empedocles was the first person we know of to suggest that light traveled.
As opposed to what? Just being there instantly.
Mhm.
Teleporting.
As opposed to being instantaneous. Aristotle, much later, argued that light is just a state of the air. Like, if I open the door to a dark room, the room is instantly lit. It happens all at once.
Right.
Empedocles said, no. Light is a substance. It's a form of fire. It has to stream from the sun to the earth. And if it moves, it must take time to get here.
He was right. It takes about 8 minutes for light to get from the sun to us.
He couldn't measure it, obviously. The idea was probably inconceivable. But his intuition... He thought we see things because tiny particles, effluences, fly off objects and hit our eyes.
The high-five theory of vision. Something has to physically touch you.
Exactly. And he had this quirky little add-on, this idea that, is known by like. We see fire because we have fire in our eyes. We perceive water because we have water in us.
So if I didn't have any fire in my eye, I would be blind to a candle.
That was the theory. It's biologically wrong, of course. But the core concept that sensation is a physical interaction between the observer and the object is the basis of all modern sensory science.
It's fascinating. He's right about the general mechanics, like particles are moving, even if he's wrong about the specific details, like fire in the eyeballs.
Exactly. He's building the foundation.
So we have this massive body of work. But there's a mystery that plagued scholars for centuries. It seemed like Empedocles had a split personality.
This is the two poems problem. Traditionally, scholars thought Empedocles wrote two completely different books. One was called On Nature, and it was the science book physics, the elements, evolution.
The textbook.
Right, and the other was called Purifications, and that was the religious book reincarnation, vegetarianism, the fallen demon.
And it makes sense why people would think they were separate. It's hard to imagine the same guy writing about the pressure of air in Eclipsidra and I was a bush once.
It fits our modern bias, doesn't it? We like to separate science and religion. So historians just assumed he had a scientific phase and then a religious phase. Maybe he found religion in his old age or something.
But then, 1999 happened.
The Strasbourg Papyrus. This is a real-life textual detective story. It's so cool.
What happened? Where did they find it?
In a library in Strasbourg, France, scholars finally examined some papyrus fragments that had just been sitting there neglected for decades. They had been used to make a kind of papier-mâché wreath for a mummy in Egypt.
Wait, they were mummy wrapping.
Basically, yeah. In antiquity, old scrap paper was often recycled to make cartonnage for mummies. So these fragments were painstakingly peeled apart, and when they read the Greek text, they realized it was Empedocles.
What did it say?
This is the bombshell. They found over 50 new lines of his poetry. And in these fragments, the religious stuff about the daemons and sin was woven directly into the scientific stuff about the elements and the cosmic cycle.
So they weren't two different books.
Or if they were, the content wasn't separated into science and religion. The Strasbourg Papyrus showed us that for Empedocles, physics was theology.
The story of the fallen daemon is part of the story of the cosmic cycle.
Exactly. You are a fallen soul because of the force of strife. You are reincarnating because the elements are separating and mixing in this stage of the cycle. The cycle of your soul and the cycle of the universe are the same thing. They're one unified story.
There's a profound realization. It means he wasn't a schizophrenic thinker. He was a unified thinker.
He was trying to build a theory of everything. To him, understanding the four roots wasn't just chemistry, it was the path to salvation. If you understand how the universe works, you can purify your soul and get back to the sphere of love.
Science is a spiritual practice.
Precisely.
So let's bring us all back to the edge of the volcano. We started with this image of a madman jumping into the lava. But now, after looking at his work, who do we see standing there?
We see the bridge. Empedocles stands right on the fault line between the old world of myth and the new world of reason. He uses the language of gods Zeus, Hera, Nestus, to explain the laws of matter, like the elements and conservation.
He gave us the four elements, a theory that dominated science until the periodic table was invented.
He gave us the foundational idea that the universe is a closed system, that nothing comes from nothing, things just get rearranged.
He gave us a preview of natural selection and the survival of the fittest, centuries before anyone else.
And he proved air exists with essentially a kitchen ladle.
And he did it all while wearing bronze sandals and writing in hexameterverse.
He truly was one of a kind, a complete original.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought, something to chew on about that cosmic cycle. Empedocles believed the sphere, that state where love is totally dominant, was the perfect state. It was heaven, utopia.
Yes. Total unity. No conflict.
But in that state,
Right.
we don't exist. There are no individuals. There is no you, no me, no deep dive to listen to. We're just a blended smoothie.
That's the irony, isn't it? Existence, our specific individual lives, is only possible because of strife.
Strife breaks the unity. Strife creates the separation that allows me to be distinct from you, and for you, the listener, to be distinct from us.
So in a strange way, we owe our existence to the bad guy of his cosmic drama. We need a little bit of cosmic conflict just to be ourselves.
So the next time your life feels chaotic or things feel like they are falling apart, maybe remember Empedocles, that chaos isn't just a nuisance. It's the only reason you're here at all. Strife is what makes you, you.
A provocative thought to end on.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.